Donald Trump has undermined the NATO agreement. He's criticized the NATO alliance, the Paris Accord, the Climate Accord, a lot of international alliances and treaties that you openly support. Is Donald Trump a destabilizing force in the world?
I think what Canadians expect me to do is have a constructive relationship with whomever is the President of the United States. And I've demonstrated that I'm very capable of standing up for Canadians' values, Canadians' interests, while engaging in a way that seeks common ground with our nearest neighbor and closest trading partner.
How do you, I mean, he's insulted you on Twitter, you know, and I know you don't take that stuff personally, but he has done it. How do you read his tweets? We're all reading his tweets every day. Do you take those seriously and literally?
I think they are part of the communications coming from the White House, from the President, and they need to be noted. I think we all make our determinations on how we take them. My job is to make sure that no matter how I feel or how I personally might react, that everything I do is standing up for Canadians and promoting Canadians' interests and values, and that's what I do.
One last thing, have you picked up the phone and called President Trump and said, hey, don't do that again about this China thing. You're undermining, we did this, Canada, because of an extradition treaty. Please don't make this political. Have you called him?
I think, no. We engage regularly on a broad range of issues, and we haven't spoken on this one yet.
Pipelines. Got to talk about pipelines. The Trans Mountain Pipeline, your government bought it for over $4 billion. Bill Morneau was on this program, your finance minister. He said the shovels will be in the ground for construction season. That's passed. When will the shovels go in the ground?
Well, I mean, the Federal Court of Appeals came forward and said that we need to do a better job of consulting with Indigenous peoples and getting the science, particularly in regards to the environment, right on that. So we're going back to the process to try and make sure that we can get it right. Because one of the most important things, even more important than just any one pipeline, is a process whereby we can get big projects approved and built. Yes, Canada is moving forward on the knowledge economy, on innovation, but we're also always going to be a country that relies on natural resources. And getting these projects built the right way matters.
But there's some that are not getting built in any way.
Well, they're not getting built.
Are they going to be built in the next construction season?
We're working through the blueprint that the Federal Court of Appeals put forward to try and make sure that it gets done the right way, and that's the approach that we can take. Now, there are folks out there who says we should simply legislate this, or we should override the courts. The fact is, the approach of trying to marginalize Indigenous voices and ignore the environmental concerns was what Stephen Harper tried for 10 years, and he couldn't get things built.
The concern is that your bills, like 69, these pipeline assessment bills, they're so onerous that they're going to ensure nothing ever gets built, that they'll be suffocated under a series of virtuous assessments that leads to nothing.
I've heard that concern, many people, and we've actually sat down and talked with those people about what's in C69. First of all, you have to understand, C69 is an improvement over the existing environmental assessment that Stephen Harper put in place in 2012, which failed to be able to get licensed to build projects. So what we've done is we've done one project, one assessment. We're getting rid of some of the doubling that happened at the provincial and the federal level. We're making it clearer, we're making tighter timelines that we'll be stuck to. We're doing the kinds of things that investors and business have asked for to get clarity so things can get done, so they can know whether or not to move forward with a project. That's what we're doing.
Meantime, your former ally, Premier Notley in Alberta, is very angry. They call it a crisis. It is a crisis.
It is a crisis.
One other way to go is to say, and this would hit a couple things, stop importing 80,000 barrels of oil a day from Saudi Arabia for Canadians in the East and reignite the Energy East pipeline. That would help Alberta, that would help the refineries in the East, and you could actually get off a dependence on Saudi Arabian oil. Why not do that?
First of all, the situation that Albertans are going through now is of extreme concern. They are being hit with a differential that is a discount on Canadian oil that is really, really hurting them. And that's why we've been working with the Alberta government, with Alberta industry, to try and support people. And we're going to continue to be there. And we're looking at a broad range of solutions.
The pipeline is the solution. They don't want EI. They want a job in a pipeline.
Yes, but in order for a pipeline to come online this week, it would have had to be started effectively under the previous Conservative government. And we know that didn't happen because they didn't have the right approach on pipelines. So any solution as we move forward, right now, Albertans need help now, next week, next month. And we know that pipelines and even rail cars are a medium-term solution. We are working very hard on making sure that the Line 3 gets in place by next fall, which is what we're aiming for because we've approved that. We're working forward. We saved the Trans Mountain expansion by buying that Trans Mountain expansion pipeline. Now we have to move forward in the right way on it.
Okay, so just real quick answers then. Are you open to revitalizing an Energy East pipeline?
There is no project on the table. The proponent has walked away,
I understand that.
And there is
But if the government came forward to de-risk it, as you did with the Trans Mountain, maybe you'd get a proponent.
You can't de-risk in absence of a project, and there is clarity that under the current approach, there is no support for a pipeline through Quebec.
What Indigenous people just want to know, and very importantly, do you, the Prime Minister, believe Indigenous people need to give consent, which is a veto for a pipeline, or just consultation? Is it consent?
The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples talks about free, prior, informed consent. And the consent process is about engaging substantively and listening to the concerns. Now, you're never going to get unanimity on any project. I'm Prime Minister not because I was unanimously elected by all Canadians, but because we have a system that came forward with a consensus, through our processes that I would serve as Prime Minister for this mandate.
So consent's not a veto. Consent's okay. Your most controversial policy is carbon, and maybe it's your signature policy. 3 years ago, the entire country was red, or orange, except for Bradwell, I think in Saskatchewan, the provinces. You got a lot of buy-in on this. Now there's what they call the resistance. A lot of the provinces, there's frankly been a Liberal wipeout across the provinces. A lot of them have flipped blue, or NDP in British Columbia. Are you listening to the provinces? A lot of them don't want your price on carbon. Will you change it, or will you impose this backstop on them?
I'm listening to Canadians. Canadians see the number of wildfires, of droughts, of floods that we're getting every summer. The real concerns about the transformations going on our planet with climate change, and concerns about the future of our kids and our grandkids, and at the same time, worries about where their jobs are going to come from, where our kids' jobs are going to come from. Canadians are worried about that. They know we need to act. One of the problems, and the fundamental problem, and economists say this, and climate scientists say this, and all experts say this, is that pollution is free, and so we have too much of it. So we are putting a price on pollution so that people pollute less, while at the same time helping families through this transition.
There's two problems with that. Mm-hmm. The first question is, despite the targets that your government has set, which were the same as Stephen Harper, even the environmental commissioner says you are not going to hit the Paris targets. You're still falling short. Raising the question, are you going to even put a steeper price on carbon if you were reelected in order to hit those targets?
The price on carbon we have put forward actually increases every year. And we are confident. And we are confident we are going to hit our Paris targets. How are you confident?
Nobody else thinks you're going to make the targets.
Actually, that's not true. There's a lot of people who know that we're going to make those targets as well.
With the current plan, you think you're going to meet the target?
We know that the combination of putting a price on pollution, of investing record numbers in clean energy, in renewables, we're making massive investments in supporting communities and families move towards a lower carbon economy, creating good jobs, looking at lower emission vehicles. There is a package of things, not just a price on pollution, but a whole range of things we can do, not just to fight climate change, but to create a cleaner economy in a way that is affordable for Canadians.
When you say a price on pollution, you don't use the word carbon tax anymore. Maybe it's a political reason, but
well, it's what it is. It's
but
carbon emissions are a
tax
pollution. It's pollution. And we're putting a price. We're not letting.
Tax.
Well, you can call it what you like, but the idea is that we are no longer making pollution free.
But therein is the second question. Consumers say, well, the price of gas for me is going up, but under Justin Trudeau's plan, big emitters get an 80% exemption. So it's almost free for the big emitters, certainly not free for the consumer.
That's actually not true. We are putting stringent limits on the large emitters because everyone needs to do their part. But you're right. The Conservatives are trying to pick away different pieces of our plan and misrepresenting it in all sorts of ways, and that's fine. That's the nature of politics. But the question we have, and the question you had for Andrew Scheer when he was on, was what is his plan?
Well,
in 2019, if someone wants to be Prime Minister of this country, one of the fundamental responsibilities is to build a cleaner economy for the future, and he has demonstrated a complete unwillingness, not to present a plan, but to actually admit that there is a problem that we have to solve.
Okay, but the last question on your plan is, these rebates, people are going to get money back. How does that change behavior? If I do the same thing and then I'm getting more money back, what is my incentive to change my behavior? For a lot of people, it seems illogical.
Indeed, but it's not. It actually works that if you put a price on pollution, if someone chooses to change their behaviors, they still get the money back and they save money by changing their behaviors. And we get to move forward in a concrete way in a plan that Nobel Prize winning economists have pointed out will reduce our carbon emissions and fight climate change effectively.